Hello and welcome to the inaugural season of BreakPoint, an unlicensed NCAA sports simulation. Basically, this is the first of many seasons where universities will compete to be crowned BreakPoint champions by means of dice rolls. And you will get to see it all play out in its Excel glory. So to start, I selected 4 teams, all from Indiana. So you can see them here. And BreakPoint was invented in Bloomington, Indiana. So, of course, my first team I selected was Indiana. And then from there, it kind of spread out across Indiana and the 4 other universities, Butler and Indianapolis, Notre Dame and South Bend, and then Valparaiso and Valparaiso. They got excited about BreakPoint and put together some teams. And now here we are in 2001, and they're going to face off with a little bit more structure. So in this season, they're going to play each other one time, and basically whoever wins the most or has the most wins and ties will be crowned the 2001 BreakPoint champions. And so you get to see the whole thing unfold right in front of you. And before we do that, let me kind of explain how this game works. It is designed to go through multiple seasons, and so you can follow your favorite team as they go through their ups and downs. It should be pretty exciting. So to start, we can look at Indiana here. And Indiana's team is coached by Bruce Keaton. And basically, Bruce Keaton's a made-up name, and then he was given some dice rolls. The first roll is the 6 that he got, and that is his coaching skill. And the second one, the 5 that you can see, is his recruiting skill. And that will come into play as we move through the seasons, how well he can bring in more talent to Indiana. Next, when you play BreakPoint, it's actually played with 4 players. And so you can see here we have the 4 players that are going to start for Indiana. And the first letter says what class they're in. So a F is for freshman, P for sophomore, J for junior, S for senior. And then the second number that's attached to it is actually how good they are. So you add up those 4 numbers, and then you add up your coach's skill, which is a 6 for Bruce. And that totals to be their strength of the team, which in this case, Indiana's total is 20. So you can see these numbers all add up to 20. Very simple. Now, next season, when we move into 2002, all of these players will move up a class. So they'll go from freshman to sophomore, but they'll also increase 1 number in their skill. So this player right here will become a junior, but he'll be worth 2. Now, this guy right here next is a senior. He's going to graduate, so Indiana is going to lose those 6 points. But then, based on the recruiting that Keaton can do, he can hopefully bring in a as good or maybe a freshman that is going to grow up to be something better to fill that void. The other numbers that are kind of here that are a little less important, but you'll see, that's the coaching contract. Indiana signed a 4-year deal with Keaton, so he'll be around for 4 years. You can see that at Butler, Lynn is only got a 1-year contract, so we'll have to figure out if Butler's going to keep him for the 2002 season, which will be kind of fun. The other number over here is the home court advantage, and basically this number says when you play at home, what extra bonus does this team get? There's 2 ways for this number to grow. One way is if they have a home win streak, we'll see that creep up slowly by 1/10 of a point. And then also, if you leave a comment below rooting for your favorite team, saying go Notre Dame, go Indiana, that will also earn 1 point, actually 1/10 of a point for each one of those. So you can actually kind of root on your favorite teams. All right, let's look down here. We can see that we have a schedule already built out for all teams to play each other. And without further ado, let's get this started to the games. Here we are at the Butler Bowl in Indianapolis. You can see that from our schedule, the very first game is Indiana at Butler. So we've actually invited those Indiana Hoosiers to Indianapolis for the inaugural game. Indiana is where it all started, and then Butler was the second team, so I figured it would make sense that these 2 would play. So here we are, and so let's see how this game plays out. And this one will be a little bit slow because I'm going to walk us through it, and then after that the game should go pretty quickly. So to start out, Indiana versus Butler. The first thing we do is we look at the team's ability. Here we can see Indiana is a strong 20 and Butler is a 13. So we subtract those and you can see that Indiana will score a 7 for themselves. And so they start out with a 7-point advantage just to start out the game, which is huge. Then the other side, Butler, they actually are at home. And so you can see here's their home court advantage, or home field. I guess I don't know what they play breakpoint on. You can choose either court or field. I'll probably bounce back and forth. And here we go. They score 1 point for that. So now, before any dice rolls or before anything has happened, we can see that Indiana has a 7-point lead going into the game. Now, what we're going to do is each team is going to get 2 dice rolls to add, but the dice rolls are not just 1 through 6. There's actually a possibility to roll a 0 and also to roll almost infinite number, because what's going to happen is if you roll a 6 or a breakpoint, then you actually score 5 points for your team, and then you get to roll again, and that's added. So if you keep rolling 6s, it can keep adding up. You'll get 5 plus another 5 plus another 5, and keep rolling up until infinity. But most likely, we'll only see 1 breakpoint and a dice roll. You don't usually roll a bunch of 6s in a row, but anything can happen. The other side is if you roll a 1, then there's actually a 50-50 chance that that 1 will be a 0. So when they roll a 1 on their first roll, we'll immediately roll a second roll. If it's high, the team scores 1 point, and if it's low, the team scores 0. You'll kind of see this in action as we go through these first games. So here we go. Without further ado, here's the big kickoff, and we'll roll the dice and see how Indiana does in the first half for breakpoint. So here we go. So the roll of dice is rolled. They roll a 4. We get to add a 4 here. And now they've got a commanding 11-1 lead. Butler's going to need to get a breakpoint just to get into this game. Here's the roll. And Butler's first half score is a 2. So now they find themselves deep in trouble. And now it's not looking good for the home team. Indiana rolls again for the second half, and this will give their total score. And they roll another 4, giving them a total score of 15. So now in order for Butler to win or tie, they're going to have to hit 2 breakpoints to add 12 points, which is going to be pretty difficult. So they need a 6 here, and here's the roll. And they pull a 4 as well. Look at all these 4s. And so that makes the final score 15-7. Indiana wins. So I can come over here, 15-7. No big surprise here. Indiana is clearly a better team, and I worry that Butler's going to even win 1 game. So next on our schedule is Notre Dame at Valpo. So we travel to Brown Stadium in Valparaiso, Indiana, and we can see we're all set up here for Notre Dame versus Valpo. Now this is a much closer match. When we look at the advantage, 22 for Valpo, 18 for Notre Dame. And this here means Valpo will score 4 points in the advantage field for that. And then also they're a home field advantage, excuse me. So they actually get an additional point, and so they are 5-0 just right out the bat. Notre Dame doesn't get any advantages. They're on the road. It's a tough game against the best team in breakpoint in 2001. So let's get to the action. So the first act, Notre Dame in the first half, they'll roll. And oh, dagnabbit, they roll a 1. So now it's either going to be a 1 or a 0 based on a high roll here. So 4 is high, 4, 5, 6. So they actually do score a point and close that gap. So Valparaiso could probably put them away if they can hit big on this one. Let's see what they do. Ooh, interesting. There's a big chance. Now let's see if they score a 0. This could be an interesting game. They do score 1 point, but Notre Dame is still in striking distance going into the second half. So now hopefully Notre Dame can come up with some big points and pull away for the victory here. And here's their dice roll, and a 5. So now this is not the best situation, but it's not the worst. If Valpo rolls a 0, then there's a tie. If not, they're going to win. So Notre Dame's looking for a 1 here. Valpo's looking for anything but. And they pull in a 3, and that's the final. And a exciting 9-6 victory for Valpo. And again, Valpo's the best team, so we probably won't see them lose too much this year, but anything can happen. So Notre Dame 6-9. Oops. All right. Now, going on to the next game, as we scroll down here, we can see in the second week of events, we have Butler versus Valpo. All right, this is Butler versus Valpo. And again, Valpo gets the advantage, not only being the best team, but they get a second home game, which always helps. And they're facing the worst team in the league, Butler. And so you can see this is going to add up pretty bad. Already, the 22-13, that's going to be a 9-point advantage. And then the additional home court means it's going to be a 10-point advantage for Valpo. So Butler doesn't stand much of a chance coming on the road against them. But strange things can happen. Hit a couple break points, which we haven't seen yet. And maybe this all flips around. So let's go. Butler in the first half hits a break point. So now they've already banked 5. But they have an opportunity for more. So let's see what happens. They hit another one of these, and this game could get wide open and Butler could be in sight for an upset. And instead they had a big 5. So 5 plus 5. Look at that. They hit a 10. They just wipe out that advantage. Valpo is sleeping on the job. So let's see what Valpo does to add to at least gain some lead ground. But basically, this is a fair fight now. That's horrible for Valpo. And here, high-low for a 0 or a 1. And that's definitely a 0, so we can just put a 0 there. And it is tied going to second half. There's no more advantage. This is huge. Can Butler upset it? Here's the roll for Butler, second half. Another break point. This is huge. Here they go again. That's 2 break points. I said this is the way they got to beat them, and this is what they do. I'm turning into a believer in Butler, baby. And another 5. That is unbelievable. So now here we look at a 20-10 lead from Valpo. Unbelievable. And here's the roll for Valpo, second half. They have to hit a 6 or they lose. Let's see what they do. And they hit a 2. What a dismal performance by Valpo. And that is a 20-2 Butler. Huge upset over Valpo. How exciting. Next in the games, we have Notre Dame at Indiana. So Notre Dame traveling from Valparaiso down to Bloomington. They're traveling all over the state. And here we have a pretty fair fight after that surprise victory by Butler. I can't even get over it. You're not going to see that a lot. That is unbelievable. All right, so now let's get back to here where we are in Memorial Stadium in beautiful Bloomington. And let's look at the advantages. Indiana has a 2-point advantage here. And then they plus get an additional for the home court. So they start out with a 3-point advantage. And let's see how they perform. So Notre Dame's first. And here's their die roll for the first half. And that's a 1. And again, man, they are underperforming. Let's see if that's a 0 or a 1. And it's a 0. So they start out with a big 0. Big goose egg. Indiana can just pile on the points here. Hopefully they can hit some big number. 2. That's still pretty good. Keeps them a 5-point advantage going into the second half. Notre Dame probably needs to get a break point here in order to survive. We'll see if they get one. And they do not. They hit a 4, so it's pretty trivial here. We know they're going to win. Indiana would probably forfeit a break point if they've got it. And let's see what they do. And they also hit a 4, and so a pretty easy victory for the Indiana Hoosiers, 9-4. Come over here. And Indiana now is in the driver's seat. So let's get this all organized as we move on to the final week. And it'll be Butler at Notre Dame and then Valpo at Indiana. And what we're looking at there is if Indiana wins or ties, they will beat the champions. If Valparaiso wins, and if Notre Dame wins, then it'll be another repeat game between Valpo and Indiana for the championship. So basically, Valpo and Indiana are the teams that are going to win. So let's see how this all plays out. All right, we're all set for week 3 of the first season. And here we have Butler visiting Notre Dame Stadium. First time that we've been here this season. Notre Dame's coming in with a very poor performance. With their 18, you thought they were going to do a little better. They've already lost 2. And then Butler coming off of a huge upset over Valpo. Can they do it again? Can they upset the Irish in their home court? That would be amazing. And maybe that victory over Valpo is just enough to keep Lynn, their head coach, get him a little contract extension. I mean, I don't see why not, and that's probably going to be the case. But we'll see when we get to that portion of the game. So without further ado, let's get into Notre Dame Stadium, Butler versus the Irish. All right, Notre Dame has a 5-point advantage for this. And then again, a 1 point for home court gives them a 6-point advantage going to the game. And let's get the Butler. Let's get that Butler dice rolling. 2 breakpoints in a row. Can they make it 3? They cannot. They cut into that advantage. They really need Notre Dame to stumble, which they've been pretty good this season doing. So let's see how that plays out. And that's a 3. So still a 6-point. Butler will need a breakpoint to beat them. And let's see if they can get it. Here's going for the breakpoint. They do not. They get a 6. And it looks like Notre Dame's going to get their first victory at home. And let's pop that in. And they get a breakpoint. They will pass on the additional and just take the 5. Actually, they'll take the 6 without rolling an additional one because they've already got the lead. And that is 15-6. All right, and that puts us to the championship game. We're going back to Bloomington. Here we have Valparaiso versus Indiana. Indiana's undefeated. A victory or a tie by Indiana crowns them the BreakPoint champions, and then a win by Valpo would actually force, they'd be 2-1, and it would actually force in another game, and I think we might play that game at a neutral site. So we'll probably go over to Butler or Notre Dame Stadium for that game, which would be kind of exciting for a championship game. So can Valparaiso push the championship game, or is Indiana going to walk away with the victory outright? So let's find out. Here we go. First things first, Valpo's got a 2-point advantage here, but then Indiana has a 1-point home advantage. So this is the first time I think we've had 2 numbers on here. And so pretty evenly matched. Let's see how they play out as we go to the first roll for Valparaiso. Here we go. And that's a break point. We give them the 5+. Big. Nerves of steel for Valpo. Now in this case, it's not a 0. It is just a 1 because that is able for them to roll a 6. So there's no additional dice rolls, but it's 5 + 1, which gives them a 6, which gives them a pretty good lead. Indiana probably could still hit a 5 and stay competitive, so let's see what they roll. Indiana rolls. And that 2 is going to make it very difficult. It looks like we're going to have to go to a championship game. Here we go. Valparaiso, big number here, could make it, put it away. And that's a 3, so that puts them at 11-3. Indiana's going to need a breakpoint to do this. Let's see if they can roll that 6. Oh, they get the 5, and that gives us a total of 11-8. It looks like we're going to have to go to a championship game as we add these numbers up. And we can see, look at this, the two teams are tied. So we're going to go take this to Butler Stadium, Indiana versus Valparaiso, the championship match, winner take all. Let's go. So here we are, home to the first championship, Indiana versus Valparaiso. Both teams 2-1. Crowds came from up north down to Indianapolis and down south from Indiana to come join this big game. We'll see who the true champion is, 2-1. Because they're at a neutral site, there is no home court advantage, but Valpo is still a 2-point better team, so they will have an advantage of 2 points. So this is actually better for Valpo than it was at Indiana, and they came away with a big victory there, so let's see if they can continue it. I did a coin flip, gave Valparaiso the home court, so that does mean Indiana rolls first, and so hopefully they can come out swinging. And they put up a 3. They really need Valpo to miss on this first half. They need a big miss by Valpo, and Valpo's going to come away with a 4, which means their lead just kind of grew a little bit. All right, Indiana, you got to at least hit 4 or higher to have a chance. Let's see how they do. And they hit with a 2, and this does not look good. It looks like Valparaiso, even with that huge upset by Butler, is still going to walk away with a 3-1, and there it is. And they do a break point. They don't need it. They'll just take the 6 and call it a day, and that's 12-5 is the championship. And so congratulations to Valparaiso winning in the championship match, knocking out Indiana in the process. BreakPoint 2001 champs right there. All right, so the next video will actually show the off season where we see the teams grow, and also anything else that has to do with coaching and recruiting. And it'll be a short video, and then we'll get right back into 2002 and see how these teams. Oh, one last thing. We will add probably at least one more team for the 2002 season. If you have a team you'd like to see join the four, please let me know in the comments, and I probably will add them. So looking for that fifth team. If not, I'll probably stick around, maybe get out of Indiana, maybe move into Michigan or Illinois or Ohio. That's kind of where my mind's set, and we'll go from there. So thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed 2001 Breakpoint.